to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Mike 𝗔𝗕𝗎𝗪, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in
anything and everything real estate, as we always do on Real Estate Radio Live, and got a great show in store today. Mr. Tim Denner is in studio today from Taps Termite. Tim, how you doing?
Real good. How you doing?
Good, and as you guys know, Tim's the termite guy, so don't freak out just yet. We got a lot of information to get to. I got like 100 questions to ask Tim today. We're gonna go rapid fire, so we'll see how much we get through. But Tim and Taps Termite is one of our wonderful sponsors for Real Estate Radio Live, so we're always happy to have them on. But just a reminder for those of you just tuning in, there's a couple different ways you can listen to the show. That is on the radio at 𝗘𝗀𝗹 1220 AM, or you can go online to 𝗘𝗀𝗹.biz or 𝗟𝗜�10live.com, or you can download the app. We have a Real Estate Radio Live app now where you can listen to past shows, or you can download the 𝗘𝗀 app and you can listen to us on the go. And we also are podcasting now. So I know you guys have been hearing us talk about this for the last couple of weeks, something we're really excited about. And so every show now you hear is going to get podcasted out on iTunes, and you can listen to us anytime you want. But if you don't want to do that, you can listen to us live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. with bonus coverage on Wednesdays and Fridays from 2 to 3. And we are live today, so we love to get your questions on the air, and especially if you have any questions about your house and about termites, and maybe you have termites or you're scared to ask that question, give us a buzz, 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220, or you can go online and submit your question online, and I'll get it while we're on the air. And that's at 𝗏𝒽𝒍𝒡_SiliconValley.com, and you can submit your question on the Contact Me section. So there you have it. And again, Tim Denner from Taps Termites in studio today. And, we are a real estate-centric show. So obviously when you're talking real estate and, things are built out of wood, you're going to probably have termites or something of that sort. So we got a lot to get to. Tim, before we get to all the frequently asked questions of termite guys, why don't you give a little bit of background on Taps Termite for those of our listeners that haven't heard you before?
Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great day. It's gorgeous outside.
That's right.
Jumped on my bike to come here today, so
there you go.
I'm very happy. So
mid-November.
Mid-November. Well, I ride all year long, so. Anyway, we started, Taps Termite was started in 1969. It's a local company, pretty much family-owned. My business partner has worked with me for, I don't know how many years now. Even before we bought Taps, which is about 16, almost 17 years ago now.
Right.
We do work for commercial, residential, also a lot of condominium complexes. So we're pretty versed on a lot of different types of inspections.
Very good. So, yeah, Taps been around a long time, and happy to have them on as one of our sponsors. And so, okay, let's start talking about termites. You've been on the show, plenty of times now. We've talked a bunch of different things. Today, I kind of wanted to drill into some of the specifics on termites so people can really check it out themselves and go into maybe self-prevention. Well, we're talking termites, but not their own problems, right? Yeah. Not their own personal problems, but do-yourself treatments and all that stuff. So, number one, what do termites look like for people that are out there listening and think they may have them? What do they look like? Okay,
well, there's a couple different things you'll see with termites, but after this first rain, or last rain we had, a lot of termites flew out of the ground and out of people's homes, and they kind of flutter, and people see them floating in the air, and they're black. They have a black head. Normally they swarm during a rainstorm, the reason being because the ground's softer. It's easier for them to go back to the ground because that type has to go back to the ground for moisture.
Subterranean ones?
Subterranean, yeah. Right. Now, the other type of termite are drywoods, which will fly out of inside, and they can fly from the roof eaves or different places. Now, those have a bright orange head. That's how we identify them easily, especially when people call. Yeah. The staff will say, well, do you see what color head it is? And, of course, people are like, huh? Yeah. So it is important. And the other thing, too, is really important if you see something, put it in a bottle, a baggie, or something. Because trying to describe it's like going to the mechanic or the doctor and going, well, I have this, or it's like that, and it's easier to look at it. So,
I mean, do you think when it gets to that point where you have termites actually physically flying through your home, you might have a pretty major problem. I mean, because typically you don't really see them, right?
Not normally. I mean, the average person, believe it or not, doesn't see a swarm that often. I mean, all the years I've been doing this, which is about 45, I don't see them all the time. Although the other day, after the rain, they were fluttering around. I was at a buddy of mine's commercial building, and I said, "Oh, the phone's gonna be ringing today and tomorrow." So so a lot of people don't see it, but like I tell people, because ants look similar, for that, because some ants have wings too, or they can fly. So a lot of times people confuse ants with that, but it's really easy to identify with us as an expert. But for the homeowner, the easiest way to tell is if a termite has a waist, and a termite doesn't have a waist, and the ant has a waist. So if you look at the body, you'll see there's a waist there. Yeah. So and stuff like that. So
what size waist do they have?
It depends.
All right.
Some are bigger than others, but all kidding
some have
aside,
to shop at Big and Tall.
Yeah, sort of. But yeah, so and then there's a lot of different. I mean, the thing is, there's a lot of different types of insects out there, but a lot of times people confuse other insects with termites, or they see something flying around, they just naturally assume it's termites and things like that.
So what? And then they live in a colony. What is a termite colony?
Okay, well, termite colony is similar to an ant or a bee colony. There's a queen, sometimes several queens, but to keep it simple, there's a queen. Then you have your workers, and you have soldiers that help protect the colony from ants, which are their natural enemy on that. And then you have the swarmers we just talked about, which can be either the drywood or subterranean. Those go out to actually start new colonies. So when they fly out, that's what they're actually doing, is looking for a mate. And then they're going to, go back into the wood. The good thing about the subterranean is if they actually go inside the house, they're going to die most likely unless they hit a plant maybe, and they can get into a plant that has some wood or something like that. They might survive for a while. Yeah. But generally, but the drywood termites, which are the ones you see the big tent for, and or the local trees and things like that, those actually can get back into any type of dry wood. So they can get in furniture, baseboard, casings, whatever. So.
Crazy. And if you're just tuning in, you're listening to National Geographic, and Tim, I'm just kidding. You're listening to Real Estate Radio Live. Tim Denner from Taps Termites on, and we're getting some background information on termites, and we're going to get into a lot more this whole show. But if you have any questions, again, 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220, and Tim's going to, we give out their information throughout the show, and I know they have some holiday specials coming up, which we'll talk about a little later, and give out their information. So if you definitely need to give them a call if you see termites flying around your house. So let's keep going. So can termites actually hurt a person? Can they hurt humans, or how does that work? Pets? I don't know.
Financially, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very emotional for most people. And, in doing this all these years, I mean, most people don't want to, obviously see me. And like I tell people, if you were excited to see me, you'd be the first. Because nobody that I've ever known has woke up in the morning and said, gee, I want to call Tim and want to see him because, gee, I want to spend money. Right. But one thing is, us and all companies, we try to work with the consumer and explain to them some of the options and things like that. Physically, I mean, if you actually were to break open, let's say, for example, a termite colony, and there were soldiers in there, what they kind of look like is their head capsules actually got pinchers on it. It looks similar to an earwig or whatever they call a pincher bug. They could, pinch you, but it's really not anything that's going to hurt real bad. But that'd be about the only thing on that. Although, if there's enough damage and somebody fell through a floor or something like that, so theoretically you could get hurt. But it's not like they hunt you down like in a horror movie type thing. The termites from under the house.
Yeah. It should have been a Twilight Zone or something like that.
Sometimes I think I'm in the Twilight Zone.
And so where do termites come? I mean, obviously, where do they come from? We know, there's certain parts of the world they come from, certain areas. Where do they come from?
Well, termites are all around the world, and I forget exactly now how many actual different termite species have been identified. I think it's about, I want to say it's like 2,500 to 3,000, but they're always finding new ones. And like, for example, there's one termite in, if I remember right, I think it's in Africa, and their soldiers don't actually have a pincher. They actually have like almost like a nozzle, and they actually squirt like a glue out to actually get the ants and stuff like that. So that's just one thing anybody really wants to, and not something everybody's going to want to do. But the nice thing about Google is you can actually Google it and actually see what termites look like too. So
Google image it. Yeah.
So, but and the thing is, like I tell people, you have to remember it's all nature, and nature's always adapting. We don't adapt as quickly as nature does. So, but generally termites they're really here to help break down the forest. Back into mulch and stuff like that. So, when man started building houses and moved out of caves, they adapted to our building habits.
All right. So that's the history of why they would be here. Gotcha. Okay, cool. So let's move more into moving away from the National Geographic lesson more, which I thought was cool because we never really talked about that before on the show. So kind of interesting stuff. So let's move more into the prevention and treatment aspect of it. And the first one we've gotten this question sometimes off air through email is, because a lot of people have cedar and they have those types of closets and that type of thing. Does cedar repel termites at all if someone has that?
It does sort of to a point, but they'll go through it to get to other wood or even a cardboard box or, But as far as, yes, I've seen them go through it, but I think cedar is like any other wood. It's, some cedar is a little bit better, like redwood. Everybody says redwood is impervious to termites. That's not true. They will eat it or go through it, the same thing. Now, pines and firs and things like that, they really like. Hardwood flooring especially. But, yeah, so, if it's made out of wood, paper, or cloth, they can't eat it.
So they do eat paper and cardboard and all that, too.
That's why, underneath the house, you want to, that's where we see a lot of subterranean because there's debris on the ground, wood, paper, cloth, pieces of construction debris. The subterraneans feed on that, and they don't know the difference between that and the house. The drywood termites can get in the debris, but generally they don't. But if it's a big enough piece of wood, they'll survive for a while.
Yeah.
But eventually they'll run out of food. Where in the main frame of the house, you'll see them.
Right.
So.
Very good. And we just got another minute or two, and we're going to move more into the treatment side of this. But one of the questions I've written down is, how much does termite treatment cost? I know it's a very broad question.
How much do you have?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and I'm being facetious on that because termite treatments can vary in cost. If it's a homeowner, we're a little bit more flexible on what we can do or not do. It's like, hey, we can do this. For example, instead of a fumigation, let's say
spot treatment.
We can do a spot treatment. But the thing is, with the spot treatment, the owner has to stay on having us come out to periodically update the house. Usually every year is good.
Yeah.
And that. Now, same thing with subterranean termite treatment. We might spot treat maybe the ground, but, they can come up behind the garage or porch or different areas. So you want to keep an eye on that, too.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is having an inspection every year.
Yeah,
and
then you guys do that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the other side of the break, but we got to take a quick one. 1-800-516-1220 is the number. 1-800-516-1220 is the number. Tim Denner from Taps Termite is on, and if you got any termite questions, give us a buzz. 12:20 a.m., the Wall Street Business Network. We have Tim Denner in studio today from Taps Termite, and we're talking termites. And if we'd love to hear from you guys if you're not freaked out already. 1-800-516-1220. 1-800-516-1220. Don't be scared to call in and talk about termites. And this segment's brought to you by Georgia's Italian Food and Pizzeria and Frankie Giant Luigi's too, the best Italian food around with 4 convenient locations throughout the Bay Area to serve you. You can go to Giorgio's and fjlitalian.com or my website to find out more info about them. And we love our sponsors here. And again, like I said, Tim is one of our sponsors of Taps Termite, and the whole show is sponsored by him. So let's get back into, before we get back more into the treatment, we were just chatted before we came on the air, Tim, is we were talking, you do hundreds of thousands of inspections, and you've done it for a long time. And so, my question was, as a real estate agent, we get inspections done on our listings and for buyers or whoever. And, so let's say you're in a neighborhood and you're inspecting, and there's, usually subterranean, or there's one or the other typically, is either subterranean or both, or the drywood termites. What's the likelihood, if you get called back out from another neighbor, what is the likelihood of them having the same thing because of the fact that they live in the same area? Is it usually pretty high?
Generally, yes. What I do a lot of times is if I do an inspection, I just did one on the Milpitas border. It was actually an old friend of mine was an agent, and he passed away a few years ago, but his wife had called. And so I told him, I said, you know, if you get some of the neighbors together, I call it a block party, so trying to get a bunch of neighbors together. Well, 3 of the people did it, and one other one's going to do it later, but they all had termites, but did varying degrees.
Yeah.
But what I was able to do is tailor it as a local treatment for 2 of them. Option 1, there was no way that the house had to be fumigated, or if all 3 of them opted to do a fumigation, it saved them quite a bit of money instead of just, you know, each one calling individually. So yeah, a lot of times, certain things, you know, because certain builders and/or buildings and different construction methods, you know, may be predisposed, possibly if it's a subterranean area.
Right.
For example, slab floor. But those are all things that, you know, that's what the inspection does. But yeah, so if you've got termites, you know, if your neighbor's got termites, real good chance you most likely do also.
So one of the reasons I bring that up is as you guys, the listeners, as you're, you know, talking to your neighbors throughout the holidays, and maybe someone mentions something to you about maybe having termites or they're seeing things fly around their house, it might be a warning sign for you as well. So maybe you need to check it out yourself. So that's one of the reasons why I bring it up now, because I think people around the holidays are less busy. They're actually talking to their neighbors as opposed to maybe throughout the year not. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, it's when people see my truck outside, a lot of people come out and ask what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that I give out cards and stuff. So yeah, it's but it's one of those things, especially if it's been more than really 3 to 5 years that you've had an inspection, you really need to do it. If it's been 20 or 30, you absolutely should do it.
As we say in Italian, forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. That's right.
All right. We just got a couple more minutes. You know, one of the other questions a lot of people ask is, can I treat my home for termites by myself? So what would you say to that?
Well, you know, there are products available, and, you know, if somebody's handy enough and can follow the labels and stuff, sure, you can probably eliminate certain infestations or, you know, control them or whatever. But realistically, like for subterranean, like if they're coming up from underneath a garage, for example, into the house, you're not really going to be able to get the equipment to do that and or the pesticide. But there are some things available that would knock them down and possibly eliminate it if you got enough in there.
Right.
But generally, to a degree, yes, but not absolutely. Now, dry woods, yeah, there are some chemicals out there that same thing. But, you know, it also comes down to the knowledge of how to apply the pesticide to control the pest.
Well, and then especially if it's all over the house, I mean, it's very hard for a homeowner to replicate a tent and do the whole thing themselves, right?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is, you know, that those gases aren't available.
Yeah, not available to the public. Really quick, we just got like a minute. You know, if someone wanted to hire a termite company to do the treatment, that, you know, not themselves, but have a company do it, who should they hire?
Let me see. Here's my card. Oh, yeah, me. Yeah, you know, and the thing is, too, is we do a lot of what we call competitive bids where, you know, other companies have been out, and we'll go out and give another bid on the property and things like that. And a lot of times we give people other options. You know, it's like I said earlier, most people do not want to have to spend the money. So if there is a cheaper alternative, and believe it or not, a lot of times I tell people, you know what, you could wait till summer, maybe put it off sometimes. So
it's not always the doomsday. Exactly. When you're there, so don't be afraid to give Tim a call. We gotta take a quick break, but if you got any questions for Tim, 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220. Tim Denner from Taps Termite is on. I'm Mike D'Ambrosio on Real Estate Radio Live. Stick around; we'll be right back on the other side of the break. D'Ambrosio on Real Estate Radio Live, KDOW 1220 AM. Tim Denner's in studio today with Taps Termite. We'd love to hear from you guys if you have any questions. 1-800-516-1220. And this segment and show is brought to you by Taps Termite, and they've been serving the Bay Area for over 45 years. Taps Termite is committed to keeping your living area pest-free by using the newest and safest technology. You can call Taps Termite for a complimentary inspection. That's 408-259-5900, 408-259-5900. And more near the end of the show, we're going to talk holiday specials, so we will get to that for sure later today. All right, let's get back into it, Tim. One of the other questions I wanted to ask, well, there's plenty of questions today, but you know, what really does happen during a? We talked about self-treatment, but and then as opposed to using a company to do it, what normally happens during a termite treatment session?
Okay,
I know that's a broad question, but you know,
it kind of depends on what we're doing. if we're doing, for example, a localized treatment for drywood termites, those are the ones that you see the big tent for, but instead of tenting, maybe, let's say you have them in the garage, so you have exposed framing there. So what we would do is we would drill into the infested wood, and what we're trying to do is actually hit the galleries where the termites have been working, and then inject pesticide into that. So it comes in contact with them, but also leaves a residual there, so if for some reason some termites survive and they bite into it, it'll kill them. Or if termites land there a year or two later and try to infest that piece of wood, they'll ingest that.
It lasts that long, huh?
Well, it'll last probably about 10 years and local, 8 to 10 years approximately.
I think where the big costs come into, if they've really damaged a piece of wood, now you're talking replacement of that wood and all. I mean, that's where the big money comes into, right?
Yeah, you can get expensive, especially if the damage goes inside a wall.
Yeah.
A lot of times we'll find damage around the fireplace, and sometimes it'll go into the actual wall, so we have to remove the siding or the stucco to replace that framing in there, and then it's all got to be put back together and then re-stuccoed. The nice thing about a house, houses are designed to be taken apart and put back together.
Yeah.
So it looks a lot more complicated than it is, and sometimes it is complicated because there's a lot of damage. Every house is different. I did one day before yesterday, and it's probably got about $35,000-$40,000 of the damage, but they neglected the property. There was leakage, and they just never fixed it. And then termites and dry rot don't stop. Termites don't sleep, so they're working 24/7.
Yeah.
So
just so people know, I'm going to put it out there, and I'm not going to ask you to give numbers because I know it's hard for you to say one way or another. But let's just say we're talking your average 1,500 to 1,800 square foot home. On the normal reports I see, usually you're talking, cost-wise, I would say on a normal report, anywhere from a few $1,000s up to $8,000 to $10,000, depending on the level of damage. Is that a good range? Am I out of line by saying that?
No, I would say the average repair normally is about $2,000. I mean, average repair. But then you get exceptions to the rule. It can, like I say, it can be several thousand. I mean, if you have roof eave damage, I mean, that can get pretty extensive because we're working on one over on east side of San Jose right now, and we started taking off the roof eaves. Well, the plywood went up. Yeah. We ended up by replacing four 4x8 sheets of plywood. Yeah. And that was stuff you couldn't really see until, the roof was removed. So, right. And that was just because of neglect. That was one of the houses that I think we're up to about $25,000 or $30,000 on that particular job. So.
Well, and the other thing, and we haven't really gotten into this that much on this show today. We're mainly focusing on termites today and not dry rot and the other thing. But the other big ticket item we normally see in a report is the bathrooms and water damage getting under the tub and having to rip the subfloor out. That's always the one that when I look at a report, I'm like, oh man, that's a big one. Yeah,
that's almost a complete. Sometimes it's a complete. Yeah, it's a complete bathroom redo and that can get expensive. Yeah. Especially if it's got a cast iron tub, it takes two guys basically to get that out. It depends on what people want to put back. Right. So yeah, it can get you pricey. So
yeah, and you don't want to be in the tub and fall through the floor. That's definitely wouldn't be a fun situation. So, anyways, this is our quick segment. We got to take a quick break, and we got a lot more to get to on the other side. Tim Denner from Taps Termite is in studio today in this beautiful afternoon in the Silicon Valley. I'm Mike D'Ambrosio on Real Estate Radio Live. Stick around. We'll be right back. And we have Tim Denner from Taps Termite in studio today. Love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions for Tim or myself, both termite or real estate related, 1-800-516-1220. And you can always get a hold of us after the show online, MikeSellsSiliconValley.com or Taps Termites 259-5900, and we're going to give out their information more near the end of the show. This segment's also brought to you by Starburst Construction, and they've been serving the Silicon Valley for over 40 years. So like Taps, they've been around a long time. And you can visit them today at starburstconstruction.com, Starburst like the candy. So, Tim liked that one. He's over here laughing. But it works, right? Everyone knows how to spell Starburst.
That's what I thought. I was like, damn, I want a Starburst.
So one thing I wanted to say, and we were talking about this between the segment, is I gave out some numbers on, rough costs on your typical termite inspection and what I see, just from a realtor perspective. And really, folks, if you're living in an $800 to $900 to $1 million property, and your termite report's only really showing $4,000, $5,000 to $10,000 worth of damage, that is nothing. and that's really good. I mean, if you're seeing that low of a percentage of cost versus value, it's really not a bad thing, and it's pretty normal, right, Tim?
Yeah, in that sense, I mean, the appreciation's been, I grew up in this business. I mean, it's, I've seen, my first condo I bought when I was 19, I think I paid $17,500 for it. So, it seems like so long. It was long ago.
I don't think you get a Honda Civic for that anymore.
No, actually, most of my cars cost more than that.
Yeah.
But so you have to look at that too. And the other thing, what we do, and it's something I should have brought up earlier, but this is a good point, is say that people have lived there 40 years, and let's say it is 5,000 or 8,000. I tell people just take that, and average that out over the 40 years, and that's really what your cost was to live there. So I'm still encouraging people to live there for a long time. Don't go by, it shouldn't be that much, because we don't know what it'll be until we look at it. But if you actually take and factor how long you've lived there, really the costs aren't that expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the things that someone can do to prevent termites from returning out? Whether they've just done the treatment themselves or they hired you guys to come out and do it. What can they prevent future? I mean, obviously it's probably pretty hard, but what can they do?
Well, it's not so much as hard. I mean, the main thing, like I said, is the inspecting is the biggest thing, because that's the best prevention. It's just like having a physical when the doctor tells you got to come or whatever and things like that. I mean, prevention is really, doing what's prudent and timely. So the best thing is do the inspection, and then, of course, follow our advice of, what we say is most important and stuff like that. Generally what I do is I give people a punch list. And sometimes it can be as long as 3 years. It's like, let's do this first year, the second year, and third year. Yeah. And I brought this up before, and I call it building a railroad. And anybody can use this, because really what it is you're putting business off into a second or third year that you don't have to go out and solicit the business, because they've already got it on their game plan to save money or budget for that in the second and third year. So the phones it helps the phones ring more, but it also gives the people a little bit better financial. Instead of it being, let's say it's $2,000 or $3,000, it might be $500 or $1,000, and then spread it out.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. No, I think that's a great way to look at it. What about, we've been talking about different termite treatments and and different chemicals, but are there any natural treatments that people, a lot of people are into this natural part, or not as harmful to the environment. So what about that?
There are a lot of formulations out there. Some of them work okay, some don't work as well. Part of it's how they're applied and or how bad the infestation is. And there's a number of different ones that they're green, and we have all those products also. But we've been doing it for a long time, and even the pesticides we use now are a lot better for on the environment and things like that compared to what they were 20, 30, 40 years ago when I first started.
Yeah.
So there again, it goes back to that, keeping an eye on it, working with your pest control company on what you have and what you need to do to keep it in check, really.
Okay. And how my other question, I don't think I've ever asked you this before, but how quickly can termites ruin a home? How quickly can it happen if you do nothing about it? How quickly can that happen?
That's really hard, because you also have dry rot in there that can contribute to it. But you can have some major damage after just a few years if the conditions are right. But like in Hawaii, they have a termite called 𝗪𝗪𝗎, and actually it's through a lot of the Pacific, and they can do some serious damage to a home in as little as a couple of years, where you're doing some major rebuilding in Hawaii. That's why, anybody's been to Hawaii, that's why a lot of the properties are built in the air up higher, because this particular termite's so voracious. Now, we do have this termite down south around San Diego area and down there. Supposedly they're never going to be able to live up here because of our climate. But they can do some serious damage in a few years, because their colonies, the thing is, too, what people have to understand is termites are like any other colony, like ants or bees. A termite colony can get fairly large. The drywood termites, or the ones you fumigate or treat locally for, aren't as large, but they can be spread out in many, many places. So that's why.
Are there any other bugs that eat wood other than termites?
Well, they don't necessarily eat it, but there's a couple of insects called carpenter bees and carpenter ants, and they actually burrow into the wood or gouge it out and live in it. There's also beetles that can infest the wood, and those can either be locally treated or tented or remove the wood. We don't find them here a lot, but they are, they are fairly common.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about some holiday specials you guys have going on. And again, Taps Termites in studio, Tim Denner, always a good time to talk to him and talk termites and start thinking about my house and what the heck's going on with that. But we've treated it, so I think I'm okay for now, but we'll see. Anyways, if you got any questions, 1-800-516-1220. I'm Mike D'Ambrosio. This is Real Estate Radio Live. Stick around. We'll be right back to wrap up the show.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com.